Good evening, everyone. On the agenda, it says reorganization comes first, but we can't have that until Nick and I are sworn in. So we're going to do that out of order for the sake of getting the reorganization done correctly. Our town clerk, Amy Warfield, is here, and she's going to swear us in, and then we'll go from there. I gotta walk slow, so we're gonna get this camera set. Appreciate it. Take it back. Want to do one at a time?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Let's do it exactly. Are you ready, sir?
I'm gonna get audio on. I'm gonna get out of the shot then. Ready? 30 seconds.
Put it up here.
Yeah, if you don't mind, that'd be great.
We get union rates for this?
Yeah, I'll go right. Right.
Okay.
Today, no?
I
I, Bob Hogan,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and partially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a select Board of Selectmen member
as a Board of Selectmen member
in accordance to the bylaws of the town
in accordance to the bylaws of the town
and the laws of the Commonwealth.
and laws of the Commonwealth.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right.
I
I, Nicholas Bruce,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a member of the Board of Selectmen
as a member of the Board of Selectmen
in accordance to the bylaws of the town
in accordance with the bylaws of the town
and the laws of the
and
Commonwealth.
the laws of the Commonwealth.
Congratulations.
Gen 63 on the present moment. Penelope, when you guys can put. Come on. Oh, all right, we'll do it later, no worries. We're not gonna yell. Not too bad, right? Swap the seats. Okay.
That was quick.
Not too bad, right?
All right, very quickly before we start, I want to thank everyone who participated in the election. It's nice when people get out and participate in what is a very important part of this republic and this democracy. And I certainly appreciate and thank all those people who voted for me. My family was an important part of this, my wife Nancy, my daughter Melissa, my grandson Riley. And I want to say that Chris and I served together for 6 years, and he's going to be missed as a friend and as a strong advocate for the town of Burlington. So, thank you. Nick, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to echo Bob's sentiments. I appreciate everyone who came out on Saturday. I think it's incredibly important for folks to get out and vote, and I know that I said a couple times during the campaign that, you know, the people who are running can't be the only ones weeks before the election to say that we need to get out and vote. You know, we need to start talking about the election and the importance of democracy is a year-long thing. Each and every year, you know, 2,700 and some odd people came out, and there were still, you know, let's say 13,000 people who stayed home. It's a big number of registered voters who, you know, have equal stake in this town as the 2,000 who did come out. So I want to thank my wife, Jen, my children, Penelope, Quentin, and Harrison, my parents, Chris and Pat Priest, Deborah Cohen, who supported me in the campaign. I mean, they were my Rocket Foundation, and of course, I also want to, thank Chris Harling for his years of service, not just as a selectman, but, his years prior to that, and being a strong member of this community. Thank you all very much.
Okay, reorganization. Start with the chairman's position. Do I have a motion to nominate one of us for the chair?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Selectman Morandi as chairman for the next session.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Should we count that 4-0 or 5-0?
Still on the floor. This will be interesting, huh? Don't say a word. Before we do the vice chairmanship, which is going to be very quickly, I would like to just say one quick thing about the election. It was great to have the turnout we had. Naturally, Mr. Priest is right about the people that didn't vote. Congratulations on both your wins. And I would also like to thank Mr. Hartling for everything he's done for this town of Burlington for the tenure that he was here. He taught me a lot, along with the other members of the board prior to Mr. Priest coming on. So, Chris, I just want to say thank you for everything you taught me, and to the rest of the guys. That's it. Now we need the vice chairmanship. Do I have a motion for vice chair?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Jimmy Tiggs as vice chair.
Do we have a second?
Second.
2 seconds. We have a first and a second. Vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0-0. So,
Down there.
Him or you? Him? All right.
Jimmy over here.
Yeah, where do you want to?
Jimmy's going to sit here.
Use AMC, yeah.
6:05. Historic Commission, 16.
It shouldn't take but a couple minutes. It's up to you. Mr. Chairman, it's up to you.
Do I, can
Move it.
I get a quick,
Yeah, absolutely, go right ahead.
I want to thank the board for choosing me as vice chair, and I also want to congratulate Nick and Bob on their campaigns, and I'd be remiss if I also didn't thank Mr. Hartling for,
Okay, sure.
he was limitless as far as his dedication to the town. I learned a lot from him as well, great selectman, great chairman, and, he will be missed. Unfortunately, we can't have 6 selectmen, so, but sure, we'll still see him around town and whatnot, and say hello. Amy, just want to thank you for the election. The weather you ordered this year was phenomenal. Can we do that same weather again for next year? All right, we'll try. All right. But, thank you, everyone.
We can kind of tell by the sunburns, huh? Some of us are peeling, some of you are peeling, I'm not. Okay, so let's move right along. We got the 070 Historical Commission.
Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, can I put in my thank you to Selectman Hartling
Absolutely.
at this time?
I am sorry for
I'd like
not
to
calling
welcome
you.
Nick to the board. I've worked with him for the past couple of years, and I'm looking forward to working with him in his new capacity. And I also would like to thank Selectman Hartling. He just put in countless hours of dedication to the town, both in his years as a selectman and prior to that as a Ways and Means and town meeting member. I know everybody here knows the amount of hours you guys put in outside of meetings, and, I personally want to thank him, because you guys put in a lot of time, and a lot of the residents don't know how much time you put in. So I think if there's anybody that's happy that Chris isn't on the board, it's probably his wife is going to have him back around once in a while now. So I truly wanted to say thank you to Chris as well. So thank you for giving me a minute to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Gentlemen, tonight we have a couple of appointments. First up is for the Historical Commission. They have voted to recommend a candidate to me, and with that recommendation, I would like to appoint Andrea Nemoda to the position of alternate member of the Historical Commission, and to request that the board waive the standard 15-day waiting period.
So moved.
Second.
So we need a vote, right?
Yep.
We have a first and a second. Do we have a motion to vote on this from anybody?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
500 in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next appointment is to fill a vacancy on the Conservation Commission. The commission voted to recommend to me a candidate, and with that, I wish to appoint John Ramsdell to fill an existing vacancy on the Conservation Commission, and request that the board waive the standard 15-day waiting period.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Bob, second by Jimmy. Gotta look over you.
Got my name tag. Please.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
500.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is 072, approval Burlington High School all-night grad party, police detail coverage.
071.
071.
No, hold
Oh,
on.
water
Okay.
and sewer, I'm sorry, I
All
missed
right.
one.
You can take it.
All
right, let's
We can
do
go
that.
out
I
of
was
order.
good. I went out of order, go ahead, sit down. I skipped one because I crossed something out over here and I didn't see it. I need new glasses. Told you, it's my first night, I'm nervous.
We are requesting, we usually have 2 police detail at the all-night post-grad party, and I think usually the selectmen cover the cost of that, so we are requesting that that be done again this year for the post-grad party.
Okay.
It's on June 2nd, it's held at King's from 10 PM until 5 AM
This is the one we do every year?
every year.
And if I may, can I have you introduce yourself, which I forgot
Oh,
to do in the
sure.
beginning of this?
Yes, Stephanie Marchese.
Anne Marie Rufo.
Thank you. This is something you've done every year, right?
Yes.
And we haven't, it's always been a great time, and the kids have a blast, and Kings is good enough to give us the time and the...
It's actually a pretty good example of the contributions that our businesses make in the community. King's closes early for this,
They do,
to provide
yes.
this, for the students, to provide them with a safe space to enjoy their graduation. So I think we have many businesses like this that really contribute in meaningful ways, and I personally would like to thank Kings for their contribution to this event. And annually, the selectmen have covered the cost of 2 police details for this event, and we have that built into the selectmen's budget, so.
Fantastic. Anybody have anything to say about that? Start with Bob.
Just that this is one of those extraordinary events that started about, 30 years ago now?
It's been about almost 30,
Yeah,
about 27,
and
28.
it really does save a lot of anguish for the parents, knowing that their kids are someplace safe, and there's no accidents, it's controlled. So thank you two for stepping up this year and doing the thankless work behind the scenes to get this all done. So if there are no other comments, I'll make the motion to approve.
Yeah, no, I think it's great.
But
No, only that I know it's been a long tradition. There've been a lot of checks and balances in place, and as far as I know, it's been incident-free since
Yes,
its
it's been
inception,
in
so.
place, yes.
yeah,
Since
no,
it's been in
happy-
place, there's
happy to,
been no accident, alcohol-related accidents.
It's
on
very-
Graduation night.
Very well attended. I think almost the entire class shows up for it, so
Exactly.
shows you how popular it is.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, if I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to thank Kings. I know that when I graduated high school, it was in the cafeteria.
Yes.
And it was still a great time.
Yes.
But I think it's fantastic that Kings, as a member of this community, steps up and gives these kids a place to go and have a great time for the evening, and, provides that safe and secure environment. I think it's wonderful, so.
I think mine was at Wingashiek Beach.
And we will say that was all night, too. If there's no further comments, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Yep, okay.
Have a second?
Second.
Bob, Jimmy? And all those in favor?
Aye.
500, all in favor.
Mr. Chairman,
good luck.
can we go back to citizens' time? I think we may have AMC there this year.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
You're all set.
Great,
Good luck.
thank
Hope
you.
everything
Thank
goes
you
well.
so much. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, they're not on here. Okay.
So-
Because I skipped over one and I wrote it down, I gotta go back there. So we're gonna go back very quick to
No, I mean the AMC, I thought they were.
AMC. Mr. Sagarino, would you like to go over that for us?
I think she's just here
She's just here?
to tell us what they have planned for the upcoming movie.
Okay. Could you just,
My name's Kate Boucher. I'm the general manager at AMC in Burlington here.
A new man.
Yes, new to this location for sure. So my understanding is that our operating hours go until 1 a.m., which is normally not a problem. There's a little movie called Avengers Endgame is coming out in a couple of weeks. The runtime for it is 3.5 hours long. So in order to just remain competitive with, local theater chains and such, our intention is to put 10:30 showtimes on sale. It just means that guests will be in the building beyond 1 a.m. So I'm just looking for a couple of dates to extend those operating hours until, if I had a 10:30 or 11 o'clock show on either one of those nights, it would be getting out about 2:30 in the morning. But, our building will be locked up and closed up by 11:15 at night at the latest, and it's just that guests are gonna be viewing their movie late, that's all. So the dates that I'm requesting are Thursday, April 25th, Friday, April 26th, Saturday, April 27th, and then I was hoping to review and do the same thing for the following weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
okay, do we have any calls?
I have a quick question. On a couple of these nights, I know you have a police detail present.
Fridays and Saturdays.
Will that be extended?
They're typically on property until 2 a.m. We just haven't had movies go beyond that, but I know that our budget with them and the hours that they charge us for till 2 a.m., but I can certainly speak to them to ask to,
Yeah, might want to,
With, Duffy, he said they are extending the hours.
okay.
so it should, yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kate, will you just address your plans for the alcohol serving for those
Okay,
dates?
so, my understanding with the conditions of our alcohol license is that no, alcohol or containers are to be in the auditoriums beyond 1 a.m. So we're intending to stop service at the bar at 9:30 p.m. to avoid anybody that would be going to that long feature, so that they would be out before 1, like our.
Okay, so you're only asking then for an extension of hours for the theater itself?
Yes.
Okay, great,
Just to be able to have people in the building.
right, good.
Bob?
No, I'm good.
All set.
Do I have a motion to? As long as there's no motion.
I'll make the motion to allow AMC Theaters extend their hours of operation for those 6 dates referenced by Kate.
Second.
A motion by Mike, second by,
I'm sorry, Michael, did you mention the time that we're approving it to?
2 a.m., Kate?
Yeah, 2 a.m. would, okay.
Give yourself enough time.
Yeah,
You need
the
2:15,
2:30
2:30
is really
fine?
what I would like.
2:30?
2:30 would
2:30
give us
okay
that
with
buffer
everybody?
for people to get their rides and stuff situated.
That's fine.
Okay, motion to approve on those 6 dates, AMC allowed to remain open till 2:30 a.m.
Second.
so, motion is seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
500 in favor?
Kate, will you tell the viewers at home which movie this is? I think that's important.
Yeah,
Avengers Endgame.
And what's the big deal about it being 12 days long?
It's the final saga of the entire Marvel universe, so,
Ah,
yes, it's been blowing numbers out of the water. I think opening day for ticket sales went on Tuesday last week, and it's at over $1 billion worldwide, so, just for advanced ticketing.
so we're going to get our share of it here.
I hope so. Indeed. All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Good luck.
Anyone else for citizens?
Anyone else for citizens' time while we're still doing that? No? Have a motion to close, let's close citizens' time, right? Have a motion to close citizens' time?
motion to close citizens' time.
Motion by Mike, second by
Second. Doesn't matter.
Nick.
There you go.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Now we can move on, Mr. Sagarino, right? We'll go to the reapproval of the water and sewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that the board received an email from John Sanchez about an error in the documents that we discussed last week during the sewer rate presentation. I know this sounds like a bad thing, but it's very rare that we get to correct a mistake by John Sanchez, so I'm actually enjoying this just a little bit.
Why he's not here tonight?
He's actually on vacation, but I want to make it clear to the board and the public that there were no change in the numbers that we discussed. It's still a 4% increase, the first one since 2013 on the sewer, and it's strictly to cover the increased cost for our MWRA assessment. One of the charts that you looked at in your backup had incorrect minimum charges on it, but all the numbers that were discussed and presented were based upon the actual numbers. So just a mistake in the actual chart that we were looking at. So we thought it would be best to have the selectmen just revote that, and the correct chart I know is in your backup. So
Thank you.
that's okay.
Before we get into, I'm just gonna, Mr. Petron was very, very happy that I told him about this incident. Of course I did. Of course I did. So I just want to put that across to you guys, that he got quite the chuckle out of it. Are there any comments from the board? No comments from the board. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the amended and corrected water rates, so water and sewer rates as presented.
Motion by Jim, second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, 5-0-0 in favor of the correction of the water and sewer change.
Thank you. And just to point out to the public, I believe we just voted on sewer rates at the last meeting. So.
Thank you.
You'll post those new rates, the correct rates at the shop?
At the shop, yeah, I gotta get, Betty, can I get the new rates? 073, approval of use of town common community day for youth and public safety. We've seen this gentleman a couple times.
We have.
I hate to say I forgot your name, but
Oh, that's
if you
okay.
could tell
Good
us
evening.
again.
My name is Ken Doucette. I'm the Director of Community Affairs from Middlesex Sheriff's Office. And on behalf of Sheriff Katujian, I'm here tonight to request the use of the town common for the 20th year for the Youth Public Safety Academy, for the Community Day for the Youth Public Safety Academy. During the day, the cadets will arrive at the common at about 8:30 in the morning. They'll have some breakfast. They'll proceed to activities and a tour of the police station. The cadets will then have lunch on the common. After lunch, they're going to proceed to activities and a tour of the fire station. This year, we had an incredible sign-up for the YPSA. Burlington is already filled to the safety capacity, as have over a dozen communities already over the last 2 weeks. We do have a wait list going for Burlington, though, so if there's any parents at home that want to try to get on the wait list, they could go to middlesexsheriff.org, contact me, and then we can get them on the wait list. Sheriff Katujian is applying for some grants so that we can hire additional staff, and if we can get that staff, we'll be able to take those people off the wait list. So I do encourage people to sign up for the wait list.
Fantastic, thank you. Gentlemen.
That's down
We'll
there.
start on this side? Go ahead.
Give us the Reader's Digest version. What is it that you're talking about doing that the parents should want their kids to do this?
Sure. So at the Youth Public Safety Academy, it's a 5-day program for the town of Burlington. They'll be there that week with also children from Natick, Framingham, and Medford this year. So we have about 200 kids that we'll have during the week. They arrive on Monday morning. We give them breakfast every day. They get lunch every day. We take care of all their drinks and all their snacks during the day. Right away on Monday morning, we have our fun, fabulous, fantastic fire drill with the kids. And then we go into a number of rotating activities over Monday and Tuesday. We have our fire safety. The Department of Fire Services donates equipment to us that we use to go over fire safety. We do cyber safety. We do internet safety with the kids. We play street hockey with the kids, basketball, talk about environmental emergencies with the kids, all in a fun summer setting. Then on Wednesday, we do have the community day where we stay here in the community. On Thursday, the kids will go up to the Billerica Boys and Girls Club. We have an outdoor challenge course for the kids in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we come back to our facility, which is our training facility in Chelmsford, where we'll have either a canine demonstration, our SWAT team. We've had meteorologists come in from the local news stations to talk about weather safety. So that rotates all the time. Then on Friday, we have our huge graduation ceremony, followed by our family pizza party with the sheriff up at Chelmsford High School. So it's an action-packed week, a lot of fun. It's meant to be low-key. We have children from 8 to 12 years old attend, And then we also have our counsel and training program. So if there's somebody that ages out of the program and at 13, between 13 and 17, they can become a counselor in training, and then hopefully work for us once they turn 18. Oh, the phone number, 978-495-7408. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, will you need a rain date? Because you have this for July
No, we
31st.
do it rain or shine, yes. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know it's, oftentimes I'm on duty at the fire department when Ken comes over with the kids and the counselors, and they really have a great time. And I've attended two or three of the graduation ceremonies that they have down here at their facility in Billerica, and if any of you have not attended, I would encourage you to do so. It's pretty impressive, and the kids, they kind of come away from the program. They've learned a lot about public safety, and they also get some leadership skills while they're there as well. So it's a wonderful program. I'm glad you're able to bring it back for another year.
Thank you.
I'm all set.
All set? Okay, that was also with their comments. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the use of the town common for the Community Day of the Youth Public Safety Academy.
Second.
So I have a motion from Bob, second from Nick. All those in favor?
Aye.
500, Betty.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
We have 074.
Do we want to wait a minute or two and,
Well, we can do they're both scheduled for 6:30.
Oh, we have to go by time, right?
okay, yeah, all right.
We can do the south first.
So, really?
We have time for this. How we doing?
We're not going to have a public hearing tonight on the alcohol line. Why don't we tell us what's going on there,
Yeah,
Betty?
our town council has reviewed their application because I noticed quite a few things that I was not satisfied with, and they agreed. So they are doing the application over again. So it should come back. So I would like you to please postpone it to the next meeting, which is April 22 at 6:30.
Do we need to take a vote to,
I think we need to open it and then postpone it to the date and
Open
and
it,
the time.
open it or open and continue it?
You need to-
Open it
yeah.
and then continue.
All right.
You should read the public hearing as well, the public hearing notice, please.
I'd be happy to do that, Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
if you don't mind. The Board of Selectmen hereby gives notice that it will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 8th, 2019, at 6:30 PM in the Town Hall, 29 Center Street, Burlington, Mass., second floor, main meeting room, to consider the application for approval of the transfer of an existing wine and malt beverages liquor license from Lester's Roadside Barbecue, Inc., DBA Lester's Roadside Barbecue, located at 376A Cambridge Street, to Tawisub Group LLC, DBA White Coconut Thai Restaurant, for use in the operation of a full-service restaurant to be located at a different location, i.e. 211 Middlesex Turnpike, and for the approval of floor plan and restaurant manager as allowed pursuant to Section 12 of Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws. The plans and supporting documentation are available for public inspection in the Town Administrator's Office during business hours, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 8:30 to 4:30 PM, Wednesday, 8:30 AM to 7 PM, and Friday, 8:30 AM to 1 PM. Board of Selectmen public hearing notices are printed in the Burlington Daily Times Chronicle and may be downloaded from the Mass Public Notices website.
Thank you for reading that into record, Paul. So we're going to postpone this, is what we're going to do right now? So do I have a-
Continue.
Well,
I'll make-
continue it,
mo- make a-
continue it.
I'll make a motion to continue public hearing for Lester's Roadside Barbecue, Inc., doing businesses, Lester's Roadside Bar, and transferring the license to Tawisub Group LLC, doing business as White Coconut Thai Restaurant, to our April 22nd meeting at 6:30 PM.
Second.
We have a second from Nick. So do we have a, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Betty, 500 in favor?
One quick question, Mr. Chairman, that has no bearing on the vote. Is this the same restaurant that we've had trouble with in the past? No. just a restaurant that happens to be in the same location.
This license went up for auction by Lester's, and they came in and were the lucky bidders.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yes, thank you, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
So we move on. So, public hearing, update and approval policy related to small cells tower. Jimmy, that's going to be all you,
Yeah,
right?
do you want me to read the public hearing?
Yeah, if you could, thank you.
Certainly,
Yeah, he's in.
notice of public hearing, Burlington Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen hereby gives notice that it will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 8th, 2019, starting at 6:30 PM in the main hearing room of the Burlington Town Hall, 29 Center Street, Burlington, Mass. The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on a proposed policy to regulate small wireless facilities consistent with federal law. The policy will be pursuant to Article 14 of the town bylaws. A copy of the proposed policy is available for viewing at the town administrator's office during regular business hours. Any person interested in or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated.
All right, thank you very much. Paul, do we have anything on this?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board is aware, the FCC came out with a declaratory ruling regarding small wireless facilities, AKA small cells, in September 2018, which went into effect in January 9th, 2019. The long and short of it is that the federal government has determined that small cell technology is important to the future of the country, and I think many of us would agree with that. But the fact is that small cell installations are coming to the town whether we like it or not. So the purpose of this public hearing is to adopt policies and procedures to regulate the aesthetics of how these installations may look. The FCC ruling has made it imperative that we do this by April 14th. At this point, I'd like to thank Selectman Tigas and his small cell committee for all of their work in getting us to this point. And for now, I'll turn it over to Jim and Attorney Brewer for any more details that the board wishes to hear on this.
Thank you very much. Thank you for reading that. Before we get started with Jim, would you introduce yourself? And
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Donna Brewer, and I'm with Miaris and Harrington.
thank you. Jimmy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We originally approved the policy back on October 22nd, 2018. When we did that, I mentioned that at some point we'd be coming back for an updated version or revision of it. We were one of the first towns in the state to even talk about this. So we had something in place in October that was applicable at the time. Then we realized we had the aesthetic standards deadline approaching of April 14th. Again, we're limited by what the FCC ruling says. So Attorney Brewer, Kristen Castor from the Planning Board, who's been a big help with this, and the whole small cell committee had numerous meetings. We revised the policy, went through another version of the policy, and what we did, our goal was to try to not combine, but put everything together in a single packet so that nothing could be missed. So Attorney Brewer drafted several versions of a cover page, cover sheet checklist, application, policy, all into one, and then design standards were a semi-different topic that, although it's the same but different, in that it's not part of the policy, but we also had to address these. So the planning board voted and approved the aesthetic standards this past Thursday at their last meeting, and this is our last meeting before the 14th for us to approve the new cover sheet, application, checklist, policy, and aesthetic standards. And I'll just ask Attorney Brewer if she's any comments at this point, if I've missed anything, or if you could just give them more professional answer than I did.
Actually, I think you covered it pretty well. So there's actually 3 different documents we're going to ask you to consider tonight. One is the revised policy. You should probably start with that one because the other documents flow from that. They're really subsidiary to your policy. The second would be it used to be called, I believe, a checklist, and now we've just called it a cover sheet. Basically, that mirrors the policy and tells the applicants precisely what needs to be submitted in order for the application to be deemed complete. We want to make this very clear to the applicants, because if anything is missing, we're going to say it's incomplete, and the tight time deadlines that the federal government imposes on you will not start to run. That's really what we want to make sure, is that the town has enough time to consider whether to approve, disapprove, or approve with conditions the applications that come in within the time frame that the federal government says that you have. The third document are the aesthetic standards. These are I know they don't look like it, they actually look pretty darn good to me, but they're really a quick and dirty attempt to try to pull together some objective, reasonable standards that we can start applying as of April 14th. You know, I got to correct one thing Jim said. He said that you're one of the first in the state. You're one of the first in the nation to look at this carefully and in this much detail. So you're really to be commended for being out there. But because you're out there, we've got a lot of learning to do as to what exactly is going to work and what might be necessary to add and what might be unnecessary to include, so that you can simplify the process. But in general, that's what we're looking for, is to get us started in providing some kind of guidance to the companies that are just waiting to come into the town.
Thank you. Before we get going with questions, I have just one quick question. Jimmy, is this the 9 pages on each one of these, or 10 on another one? This one, this is all the stuff you've accomplished since this started, this whole package we just received tonight?
It's the beginning of the
Pretty much.
stuff, yes.
So pretty much
Pretty
is
much,
all,
yeah.
is all, and so this is all brand new to this town and what's going on. So before we get into the questions, I just want to say thank you. This is incredible. This is unbelievable what time and effort you put into this. And these are the things that most residents don't see, of all the other time that the selectmen and our staffs do prior to these meetings. They see us here for an hour, 2 hours, and they're like, oh, wow. But then this is the stuff that impresses me, of how much time you put into it. With that being said, I'll open it up. Mike, I'll start with you. You have anything?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess, I agree with you. Everyone involved in this is actually pretty dry stuff. You know, as I've been reviewing it over the past several months, and I appreciate you folks working hard on this. My question is, have the providers had an opportunity to give you feedback? And the reason I ask that is I don't want to adopt something that is going to necessarily end up being litigated and cost us money down the road to implement. So what's there, have any feel for that?
Today I had a conversation with Kristen where she said she had had a meeting or a conversation with AT&T. So I don't know anything more about that. I do know that Verizon has been reaching out to us, trying to talk with us. We wanted to get the aesthetic standards in place first, but you might recall that there was a letter that Verizon sent in October of 2018 to this board where he wanted the board to address a couple of issues that were in the policy back in October. And we have not changed the policy in that regard. So Jim might be able to give you some more details about that, but our goal here is to try to protect the town while being compliant with the FCC ruling. You should know that the general consensus is that the providers got virtually everything they wanted in the course of the ruling that came out from the FCC. So if they're going to say they want more, it's going to be a pretty untenable position for them to take. But we think we're in compliance, but we also think that we are doing what the FCC permits us to do.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it came down to a matter of reasonableness. Is it reasonable? And I don't think the policy or what we're asking here is unreasonable. as Attorney Brewer said, our goal is to protect the town as much as we can. And we're doing that, what we believe is in compliance with the FCC regulations and being reasonable at the same time. And being not unreasonable at the same time, I guess, is a better way of saying it.
And I will tell you, you're not necessarily buying litigation if something comes up that the providers say is inconsistent with the FCC ruling or the Telecommunications Act. You always have the opportunity to change your policy or the aesthetic standards if you are convinced they are correct. Or even if you're not convinced they're correct, but you still want to avoid a lawsuit. So this is our effort to meet the tight time deadlines that the federal government put us under in order to provide some kind of protection to the town, but by no means does anybody think this is the last word on the subject.
I sort of suspected that. I suspected there would likely be some revisions. You believe they can be handled in-house here or through the committee? Sounds like to me.
It's probably both or either. There are certain parts of this that could be handled at the policy level, and there's potential for bylaw changes. I don't want to go out and say that that's the case right now, but there's potential for future bylaw changes with these. This is new. It's uncharted territory. So we think we're doing the right thing. We think we've protected the town as much as we can. We think we're being reasonable. We think we're not being unreasonable. And it very well could need to be changed at some point in time, but we think this is what we have is appropriate for the time before the April 14th deadline.
Okay, so the 14th, so you mentioned bylaw. Is this a policy, or is this something
This
that's
is
going to
pol- this is
require
policy.
a zoning, a vote of the town meeting later in May?
This is a board policy.
Policy,
Yep.
okay. And you're comfortable, Paul?
Yes,
voting on
I
this
think what
tonight?
came up a lot of times during our meetings was this is version 1.0.
Okay. all
This
right.
is a first pass, an educated pass, and we believe it to be very reasonable. But do expect, as this issue evolves and we learn more as we start receiving applications, then I think it's likely that we're probably going to be continually revising the policy to keep it updated and legal and within the FCC guidelines.
Okay, and it sounds like all eyes are on Burlington for the time being too as well, huh?
No, they're on Jimmy.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, those are my concerns.
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
I have a couple of my own questions, but a follow-up. If they, whoever they are, contest any of this, does the clock stop?
No,
It does not.
no.
So they could contest through the whole 60 days.
They could, and what you'll have at the end, so the shot clock deadlines range between 60 and 150 days, depending on what is proposed. If they don't agree with something that you think is critical for determining whether to approve, disapprove, or approve with conditions, you can take that into account in what your decision is, and then it's going to be up to them to decide what to do about it. But there will be negotiations that will be ongoing in that 60 or 150 days.
Okay, and Jimmy has your speed dial connected to you.
We've become very good friends.
All right, the application, the one we're talking about, this has been approved by the planning board, correct?
Yeah, so Kristen told me, I guess they met last Thursday, and there were only 2 comments that they had that I'd like your input on, that they were concerned about changing somehow. One of which had to do with the distance that the equipment is going to cover. And in light of that comment, I actually looked both the policy and the application, but if we look at the policy specifically.
Which one are you talking, which letter in the alphabet are you talking?
It is 2,
Okay,
little VIII,
okay,
6, or actually 2 VIII in general.
okay.
So they're looking at, they were asking about how much of the area would be covered, and I think you've got that both in your policy and your application. So it may be that they just didn't really notice that in particular. The other thing they were interested in seeing in the policy and in the application was the frequency of the equipment that's going in there. We do have in the policy and in the application that they need to certify that it won't interfere, whatever the frequency is, it's not going to interfere with public safety frequencies. Perhaps, I'm guessing that they actually want affirmatively for the applicant to state what the specific frequency is that they are using. So the question is, first of all, do you want that information if you are satisfied that an engineer has certified it's not going to interfere? Is that further information that you'd like to have? And
If-
secondly, do we think it's somewhere in here already? I didn't really see it, so whether we want to add it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may continue.
Yes, go right ahead, you're still.
I'd like as much information to lock down the loopholes.
Okay.
So is it in what we're approving tonight? And if not, can we somehow figure that out? If we could say, unless this is not here, whatever it is you give us will then be put in?
Right, yeah, so if you vote to approve this with the condition that we add in a requirement that they provide the express frequency, I can make sure that that gets in the documents as approved.
So, Mr. Chairman, when the time comes, I would like to have that in there if the other members are not opposed to it. A couple of other things, if I may continue. I know we're not allowed to charge exorbitant fees for this, and we're only allowed to charge for what it costs us. How do we know what that is yet? I mean, because we have an awful lot of these that are going to come through. Who's going to collect them? Who's going to tell everybody that needs to do something what that is? Who's going to collect the fees? Who's going to do the public notices? It feels like there's a lot of work here.
There is a lot of work here.
Is the $500 and then the $100 fees going to cover all of that?
No, so this might be something you hear from the providers. They're going to say yes. But what the FCC ruling said is that we're going to assume, or we're going to presume that $100 per small wireless facility is the reasonable cost of dealing with the application. However, it does go on to say that a community can charge more if it can prove that it actually is bearing those costs, that those costs are real and reasonable. So what we have in here is we have the $100 per small wireless facility that they have to pay us, but we also say you have to pay the costs of the publication, you have to pay the costs of the engineering consultant. Those are real costs, we don't mark them up, and they should have to pay them.
Okay. Are those the only two things we can charge extra for? Or,
Yes.
or if, if we actually have to hire staff to do it?
Good question.
Because I got the feeling this is, as you said, this is going to be a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff. I think that is unlikely to pass muster. We're going to have to work on specifying the actual cost, but in general, hiring of staff is overhead, and overhead is not generally something that you can pass along to an applicant. We're going to have to do the accounting as time goes on, as we're dealing with these applications, to determine what the actual costs are to the town beyond the consultants and those outside costs.
So the-
Inside costs, we're going to have to work up an accounting that will prove that. If we do that, we can then increase the fee.
Okay, so we also now have to have somebody to keep track of all these other people that are doing all these other things.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's
I didn't mean
not-
that to sound sarcastic.
No, and we're back to why so many, we're back to my first comment about why the providers got virtually everything they wanted.
I think that's it at the moment, Mr. Chairman.
I just have one question really at this point. Knowing that this is a living document really, and that, you know, as we go, we're going to be evolving this as things change. All the pretty pictures, which are great, and I was telling the gentleman before the meeting started that there are a couple of these right outside my office in Boston. I took some pictures, and it looks nice. I noticed in the design rules and regulations, 4E for wood poles, the height of any replacement wood pole, including its antenna, shall not exceed 45 feet. So now, lamp posts can look pretty, but when it comes to a telephone pole, I mean, are they just going to bolt these things to the side of the pole and have the antenna go up, and as long as they meet height requirements, we're all set? Because if I'm not mistaken, Verizon owns a fair amount, if not all of our poles, correct? I feel like that's just like one of those places where, yes, we've covered lamp posts, but our poles are still fairly vulnerable. I don't know if there's anything that we can do about that, or if I'm being way too paranoid.
I would not say you're being way too paranoid. Who knows what we're gonna get for what these things look like. I'm not as familiar with this document since Kristen put this all together.
Okay.
So I know that we had issues of design or color in an earlier draft to try to make it fit within the area.
That's in here.
That's in there.
Yeah, so on page 4, 5.1 covers cables and wires, which, you know, asks that all cables and wires are fully concealed.
Yeah.
And 5.2 handles colors, which covers, if I'm not mistaken, logos, or maybe not.
Yeah, it covers existing wood utility poles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, are they just gonna go up the X number of feet and strap a box to it and call it a day?
That's the hope, that these design regulations say they can't do that.
Okay.
And again, with the pretty pictures, we're back to saying, here are the designs that we prefer. And we do have in our policy and in our application that they need to describe it. And one of the conditions that you could impose is, we will approve this, however, you can't put up that specific pole or design. We want you to do this one because it, for whatever reason, it fits the neighborhood better, it is more in line with the other poles in the area. Who knows what it could be?
Sure.
But that's going to be among the items that you're going to review. Is the design, and is it consistent with what you want and with your policy?
Okay. I just don't want us finding ourselves in a position where, you know, one of the carriers says, well, we've met your standards for lamp posts, but, you know, we're in a residential area, and, you know, because your design regs don't really cover poles, wooden poles all that well, we're gonna do what we want. Because, I mean, that encompasses a fair amount of town.
Yeah,
So-
definitely, and we're going to be watching to see what comes in specifically for poles, and if we find the design standards inadequate, get them changed.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Another one if I could.
Yes, sir.
We've been talking about the mechanics and the aesthetics. As Paul and Jim have indicated, we don't have a choice. We have to vote on something tonight in order to meet the deadline of the 14th. What about people that have issues with the health-related concerns that go along with increasing from 4G to 5G, and what that means?
So as you know, the Telecommunications Act says that municipalities cannot consider the reported health effects of any kind of telecommunications equipment, including small wireless facilities. So if somebody brings that up, that's unfortunately just going to be beyond your purview.
Wanted the lawyer to say that, not me.
Happy to do so. Not happy to do so,
But
but
we require, yeah.
it is what it is.
Thank you, Mr.
All set? Mr. Sagarino, any comments?
It's a public hearing, Mr. Chairman, so if you wouldn't mind, just open it up to the public, see if anyone would like to speak on this.
So on that note, is anybody in the audience open the public hearing? Would anybody like to speak on this? Yes. Come right up. I know we know each other. You have to introduce yourself. Yep.
Nice to meet you.
Well, I guess initially, we certainly appreciate all the efforts that the Board of Selectmen, the town has undertaken, obviously, to try and develop a policy. I guess I would just request that some consideration be given to Verizon Wireless's opportunity to actually comment. We did not have an opportunity to review any aspect of this. I effectively received something late this afternoon. I know that the town believes it's under some sort of a deadline, and there is a stated 180-day period that I can acknowledge, I guess, was outlined in the FCC rulemaking, but I don't think that was intended to be a hard deadline, that if you don't do something now, you've waived forever the ability to impose standards. So I don't know that there's the level of urgency, and as we had outlined in our October correspondence to this board, we really do want to work with the town of Burlington. I'd like to be able to give my client at least the opportunity, if they want to comment, and perhaps, you know, the policy and the other regulations that are being proposed would actually benefit from that type of input. It would allow you to develop something. I guess I'm concerned, I understand what's been said here this evening, this is just an initial, but it's concerning that once you pass the initial, how easy it will be to consider alternatives and other options, and also, could you even file under this policy if you don't agree with it? Would you be subjecting yourself to the policy, acknowledging and accepting it? So it would almost prevent filings if you're not comfortable with this policy going forward, which, you know, would continue to inhibit the ability to provide the improved wireless service that we've been endeavoring to do. I have been personally working on this for over a year, maybe a year and a half, with the town boards, going through the committees, coming before this Board of Selectmen. So I guess I would just ask that my client be given an opportunity to comment if they choose to. As I said, I haven't had a chance to provide them anything. I haven't had a chance to discuss this with them. I don't know if they would want to comment, but I know they had offered to work with the town. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Jimmy?
Did you want to respond to that, or can I?
Again, our duty is to the citizens of Burlington, the residents of Burlington. I don't want to put us in the position of taking a chance whether the 14th is a hard deadline or not. Again, we know this is going to be revisited at some point in time, and I think we need to do something as opposed to doing nothing. And I think by allowing I just think it's in the best interest of the residents of this town if we approve this tonight, and then the applicants can come before us, and we'll deal with it when they come before us.
That's what I was thinking.
That's where okay. Michael?
I have nothing further other than a motion to close the public hearing.
You just asked. Dick, anything? Oh, sorry.
Before you close the public hearing, I had some questions in the draft documents that really needed your input on them, so I would ask for your consideration.
1 second, I'll get right to that. Did you have anything further you wanted to say?
At this point, no.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So in the policy, one of the conditions that we had in there for the annual recertification and affidavit section, which is at the very end of the document, 3A, is that it requires that the equipment that is in use remain covered by insurance. And frankly, I'm not sure what kind of insurance that would be. I'm wondering if any of you might have a better idea. This is from an earlier draft, and I'm not sure about it. In 3A,
Policy.
Oh,
in the policy.
could you go over that real quick one more time, because I was,
Yep, sorry. So 3A on the policy.
yep.
Subpart 2 talks about, for the recertification, that the installations remain covered by insurance, be shown to be covered by insurance. Just not sure what kind of insurance that would be.
Have standards been developed by the federal government on what insurance, should we cover it, or does the industry have something that they already have that they cover their equipment with?
I think that's an excellent question for Dan Klasnick. Okay, so you don't know of any specific insurance that would cover
Your equipment in general?
facilities in place? All right.
Would your recommendation be, I'm sorry, yeah, your recommendation, would it be to put some wording in there that whatever is determined to be a industry-wide standard, blah, 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 kind of a,
Let's do it, insurance as required by Mass DOT.
okay. If that's okay with the members.
That was the only question I had on the policy. I've got a couple of questions on the application cover sheet.
Before we do that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I do that now? Was I make a motion to close that? Or we ought to keep it open?
Yeah, we can still
Just
discuss.
leave it
we can
open.
still
Yeah,
discuss it.
we're just closing the public,
all right,
the
Right, that's all I'm doing.
participation part of
Just the
it.
public hearing.
Yeah.
All right, I'll make that motion, to close the public hearing.
Second?
Second.
I made a motion by Jimmy, second by Nick. All those in favor?
All right.
Okay. So we close the public hearing.
Okay, thank
Go
you.
ahead.
On the application checklist, under specifications of equipment, my page numbers might be different from yours, but we have specifications of equipment, we have dimensions of each piece of equipment, and total dimensions of all equipment. Have you guys found that part of it? The
Page three.
question I have, is this page 2 on your?
Well, it's page 3 at the top on ours.
Page 3 at the top, right, so that's same as mine. The third line down is total weight at each location, and I just didn't know if that's something that you would want to have.
Was there not something somewhere in the past that talked about weight relative to not having so much weight that it's going to topple the pole?
They have to certify that they have to get an engineer to certify that the structure or pole that it's installed on is sufficient to carry the weight of the equipment,
Without saying what?
without
in the-
saying specifically what the weight is. So I didn't know if you wanted to still continue to add what the weight is of the equipment if you get that certification.
Chairman,
Yes.
would that be an unreasonable request to ask the total weight?
I wouldn't think so. I don't believe it in.
Just
we-
to follow up with Mr.
So we do it both?
Sorry, yeah,
Do
you're
both.
doing both.
Okay.
More information we get, the better.
And then under the annual recertification, I had the same question about insurance, so I'd make the same change that you made to the policy. Insurance is required by Mass DOT. That was all I have, thank you.
Just, real quick, where was that on? I have it on annual recertification and affidavit.
Yeah.
on Page 5.
Yes,
Just trying to
it's
find
in the
where
first bullet point,
First bullet point.
under subpart 2,
Okay, covered by, all right, got it. Thank you.
insurance as required by Mass DOT will be added.
So when we make a motion on this, we need to put those in there as as the change, along with Bob's
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
motion earlier.
And
Right.
what was the wording that we decided to put in?
That I was going to add to the document, the frequency, one of the requirements that they have to provide is the frequency of the equipment that they're providing. And I have to find a place to put that. Haven't figured
So
that out
whoever's
yet.
making that motion, does somebody want to write this stuff down so we make the motion, we have it all?
Betty, did you write that down?
Certain conditions,
There's
the
certain-
two conditions, or two or three conditions that
Yeah, I think there's 3 right now.
attorney is
Yeah.
mentioned.
Incorporate the plans that were discussed at tonight's meeting,
Okay.
the changes.
Yeah, anything that might be changed that we don't know about.
So on that note, are you all set?
I'm all set.
You're all set. Is the board set with any other questions?
I just wanted to follow up on where we had that frequency discussion
Yes?
on, was that on the design standards?
No, so that was in the policy and in the applications. unless you want to just put it in the design. No, I think it belongs in the policy.
And where we,
That's where I'll figure out a place to put it.
okay, oh, because I didn't write it down, that's why I'm asking. Oh,
Okay.
are we good?
I'm
Are you
making sure,
willing?
I'm all set. I just want to make sure you guys are all set with the questions. Want to make sure she's all set. Mr. Sagarino, do you have anything else for us?
No,
We're all
Mr. Chair.
set, so on. You have that look in your eye like you want to ask something.
I'm glad you can see it already.
One meeting, I got it down pat.
I just want to ask, you feel comfortable with everything that's here and that we have the right foundation at least?
I believe you have excellent documents to start with.
Okay. Okay.
And we'll keep track by dating when it's approved so that we know the progress that we make as we go through.
Absolutely.
On that note, do I have a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we accept all of the small wireless facility policy, application, cover sheet, and design rules and regulations as presented to include the topics that we discussed tonight with regards to the RF frequency and insurance as required by the Mass DOT. Is that covered?
I covered. I have a second.
Second.
We have a motion by Jimmy, second by Nick. All those in favor?
Aye.
So approved 500.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Ladies.
Thank you.
And you can get that to me.
I'll get it to you tomorrow.
Thank you. Can I just make one comment?
Absolutely.
All right, the next stage, I guess you would call it, would be to enter into discussions with an RF engineer, and Mr. Sagarino and I have discussed this briefly, but now the RF engineer's goal, or the purpose of having an RF engineer is to review the application. Now we finally have an approved application, now we can discuss the, to the extent that the RF engineer will need to review and get back to us and stuff, so now we have an application that an RF engineer could review. Correct.
Question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just a follow-up to that. I really didn't want to be dismissive of the attorney representing Verizon, but I would agree with you, Jim, with that deadline looming, I'm not going to take that risk. But let me also add, and I'm sure they're going to be asking for one, but make sure there's a copy of what we've approved tonight, once it's been touched up by our attorney, and make sure that they get a copy of that as soon as
Absolutely.
possible.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Bob?
Considering that we're probably going to have some outside contractors, should Kate be involved in this?
We've already done the work on determining the procurement rules related to the RF engineer. So we're ready, that we've identified a couple, and what we need to talk about next is how does their review impact this? Does it make sense to have one engineer for each carrier because they have to do a lot of work on a particular system? Or we can assign one and then assign a different RF engineer the next one that comes in, so that we can have several engineers available to review the application? So that's sort of the next step on us, is to figure out what type of work is involved from the RF engineer's standpoint, and that's a little bit uncharted territory for us. But now that we have the application, we can actually have a discussion with these folks and say, what type of work does this entail on your part, and does it make sense, again, to have one RF engineer per carrier, or to have a battery of them that we have to be able to send through if we get a ton of applications? Those are things I think we'll determine during our discussions with those folks.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes.
Also, I think multiple RF engineers on standby is the way to go, just my opinion, because if we have just one and they're on vacation, we have a 10-day shot clock that has to be reviewed and determined whether it's complete or not. So having more than one gives us that option of, if someone's not available, then the next one is, So those are the things we're gonna be looking at as far as retaining multiple, or at least trying to contract with more than one RF engineer to help us.
Well, if I may, I may. I forgot that part. No, you guys have done an incredible job with this, but like they said earlier, this is just the beginning stages. I'm sure this pamphlet that we got tonight is gonna be changed at least two more times before it's finalized to what the town accepts. And you gotta look at it, there's a point where, from what she had said, the whole country's looking at, different places are looking at this town of Burlington. So when you talk about technology and what we have in this town and bringing this to it, it's incredible. I can't thank you enough for all the work you've done. I've only said it 3 times. I'm probably gonna say it 4 or 5 more times, but it's been a lot of work, and to sit down and do all this, that's fantastic. So thank you.
It's thrilling subject matter, too.
Yeah, it's riveting. It's almost as riveting as an event I went to today.
It was riveting.
Okay, let's move on. We'll talk about that under new business. 076, irrigation improvement reapproved by the Department of Public Utilities. Who's that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board is aware, the town has previously engaged in a municipal electricity aggregation program. We currently suspended the program due to market conditions that really weren't favorable to us putting together a bid that we thought could benefit the residents. The previous aggregation program that we had saved our residents about $265,000 town-wide on their electrical bills. What they're asking for is we need a vote to have our plan reapproved with the Department of Public Utilities. And what we'll keep doing is we'll have our consultant review the market conditions, and if the market conditions become favorable to where we think that we might be able to put together a program that would benefit the residents' electrical bills, we'll have the ability to do that. But this vote isn't authorizing a new program. It just allows us to maintain the status we have as having one of these programs. And then in the event that the conditions present themselves in the upcoming year, we can do another aggregation program and offer it to the residents. So this vote just allows us to keep our application live with the Department of Public Utilities.
Mike, any comment?
I do. You may recall when we first rolled this out a couple of years ago, I was not in favor of this program, and I was not in favor because of the opt-out clause. Everybody is thrown in, whether they want to go in or not, they're put in there, and the only way out is for them to apply through COLAS or whatever the process is to get out of this program. I much preferred an opt-in policy and allow people that choice whether they want to get in or not. There's no guarantee. And the reason we suspended this program is because other providers were offering rates less than what this program was offering. We got some criticism on social media over this program a little while ago. Folks claimed that they weren't aware that the town was their provider for electricity. And so, this is really no different than, putting money in the stock market. We're subject to rate increases and decreases, and there are a number of players in the market. I, for one, shop around for my own electric rates. Most people are just comfortable getting that bill and just paying it and assuming all is well. But if we're going to continue the policy is going to continue to be only an opt-out rather than an opt-in, then I would have to, again, be opposed to this program. I know we've saved some money. Paul mentioned it. It was a pretty handsome figure there, and folks did save money for a while. But I'm just not comfortable with only the opt-out language in that contract.
Well, just to be clear to the board, tonight's vote, we're not engaging in a new program, just keeping our application alive, that in the event that we wanted to, it would have to come before the board again. And I don't disagree with you. I think it's the one major flaw of the program is the opt-out part of it. Unfortunately, it's like that in every community because the actual aggregation part of it doesn't work unless a substantial amount of the residents participate. So it's almost like a combined purchasing power. So as you already stated, most people don't look at their electric bills. So if we were to send out a flyer to say, hey, you got to opt into this, it's not likely that we would have enough consumers in order to take advantage of that combined purchasing power. So these programs are existing all over the state now. They are all opt-out programs. And again, I personally, on a personal level, I hate that aspect of it as well. But unfortunately, I don't think it works any other way.
Like the health insurance, I mean, if you don't have enough people putting into it, you're not going to get those favorable rates. I
In any
agree.
event, we're not approving a new program here tonight. This is just something to keep the possibility alive. And in the event that we had something that we thought we wanted to bring to the selectmen, you would have another crack to vote it up or vote it down. So if that matters for your vote this evening, I just wanted to point that out. That we're not approving a new program at this point.
The advisor, is he the one, he or she or they, that we should have gotten out of it because the market situation changed? And will that be the same next time, so that if these things, everybody doesn't have to opt out, we can just stop the program as a whole?
I think there's a lot of opportunity in there. I wasn't involved in the last one, but I do think there's an opportunity there. Obviously, the whole purpose of the program is to try to save residents a few bucks on their electric bill. So if it's working against the residents, then certainly we would want to cancel the program right away. So again, that's something we can,
So that's one entire opt-out for the town? They don't have to, 14,000 residents don't have to?
no. And again, that's something I think we could review if in the event that we had another application to try to do an aggregation program. Again, I wasn't party to the last one that went on, so
How long ago was that?
3 years.
3 years?
2 or 3 years, yeah.
Just when I came on, well, a little bit after I came on last time.
Thank you.
Anything? I'm good.
I just want to say for anyone who's watching or will watch this, if you were a part of this program, you're going to be reverted back to Eversource,
Right.
correct? Okay. Just so if folks are watching and they're like, well, I was a part of the program, what happens next? You're automatically being reverted back to Eversource.
Fairly certain it would have already happened, so.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Congratulations, you're right back on Eversource. All right, thank you.
All set. I'm going to say something real quick. Mike, the last time we voted on this, I was in favor of it until I got the feedback from the residents. And I got the feedback from a lot of people that, well, who are you to put me into this program? And I tried to explain it. It was tough to explain. So I have to agree with Mike that it's very hard to tell someone this is where you're getting your electricity from. This is, we save money, you save money, and then when it turns the other way, it gets tough. So I understand completely what we're voting on tonight, and I'm all in for tonight, but the next time it comes up, we're going to have to really talk about before I vote on it. So that being said, do I have a motion on this?
Yes, I'll make the motion.
Is that Bob?
Yep,
Bob,
for reapproval.
Make a motion to reapprove. Second?
Second.
By Jimmy. Motion by Bob, second by Jimmy. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0-0. No? Opposed, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. I didn't say it, that's why.
You didn't ask.
I didn't ask.
Strike two.
It's like 2. I got 2 of them. That's not bad for the first night.
You're doing well. You're doing just fine.
All right, so it's 5-0-1. 4-1. That's 3? Does that count as 1?
That's the same.
That's a
one.
math,
That's
that was a
bark.
math problem.
That was bark.
All right. Now you got me all confused. I don't know where I'm going.
You got 22 more
Minutes.
meetings to get it.
You want to do the school first, and then we'll do the minutes afterwards?
Yeah, if we can do the Maytown meeting warrant and the school is part of that.
Okay.
Item number
Can you
78.
do that now?
Sure.
See him sitting down back down there at 78.
We don't need them right now.
We don't need him right now?
Go through this.
Okay.
Item 78, Mr. Chairman, we have for your approval the warrant for the upcoming Maytown meeting. In the upcoming weeks, we'll be bringing many of these items to you for a board vote, but tonight we're voting on to approve the list of items that are going on the warrant. So the intention is not to talk about each of them individually. Mr. Cooner is here because he came to my office with a look of terror earlier this week. earlier last week when he realized that he had forgotten to put the school bus transportation contract on the warrant. So after a little bit of research, we were able to review the town bylaws, and the town bylaws allow the selectmen to add an article onto the warrant that we received after the deadline, if you deem it to be of extreme importance to the town. And I felt as though having school buses for the children for the next school year was important for the town. So we've asked, well, if we could get 2 votes, one to approve the warrant, and then one separately to approve Mr. Kuna's school transportation contract, it would be appreciated.
So the question I have, has he been hanging around with Mr. Sanchez? Just a question.
He's only made a couple of mistakes, too.
Okay.
So there's nothing we can extract out of him in order to get this.
Look at him sitting back there. You don't even want to come up front, do
No,
you?
he's not even making an attempt to come up to the table there.
Question.
Yep.
I have a quick question, Paul.
Yep.
So, vote number 2, the school buses, would that be to add it to the warrant?
Add an article that we didn't receive by the technical
So
deadline.
would it make sense to vote that one first, to add it to the warrant, then approve the warrant?
That's a good idea.
All right.
And again, having woke up the morning after the deadline for the past 14 years, wondering if I forgot to submit something, I really felt for Mr. Kuna on this one, so.
Yeah, I can tell. It's written all over your face. All right, so yes, go ahead.
Well, I'll wait.
If there's any questions at all? None. None being no questions, have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that, due to the important nature of the article, I'd like to add the school transportation contract onto the Maytown warrant.
Have First by Jim, second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's 5-0-0.
Thank you. And now, if we could just get a vote on the entire warrant listing?
Okay? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the Maytown meeting warrant as presented in the, to us. Just approving the warrant as written, but not individual items or warrants themselves.
Motion from Jim, second from Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0-0. Okay.
Thank you.
One question for Mr.
Yes.
Sagarino. Did I hear Amy say that she thought this would be a 3-night event?
She was suspecting, we sort of do a pool on it every year as to what the over-under is on meetings, but Amy came in first with her first guess is it's a 3-night event.
Thank you.
3-night event. All right, so we're all set with that. We'll go back to 77 minutes of February 11th, 2019. We have a
Motion to approve the minutes.
motion by Mike,
Second.
second by Bob. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll be abstaining.
Abstain. So 4-1-0. I get that one right.
401.
I like it the other way around.
Betty knows what you mean.
Let's go right to subcommittee reports. We'll start.
Yeah.
Not here.
I just want to applaud Betty and the staff that worked on the annual report that became available at the polls on Saturday. It's a little heavier than usual, if anybody has picked it up. There's a lot more information there on the counting, which is actually pretty good reading in the back for a change. So I think Betty is shooting, what, for second place or first place next year on this? But I would like to recommend to the citizens, there's a lot of information in here about what's going on in town and what the town departments are doing, and I would recommend getting a copy of it and going through it. It's online also, isn't it?
Yes.
What's that, what's that, is that this page?
Yes,
Burlington.org? All right.
under the selectmen's.
Under the
section.
Selectmen's page, okay. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there, and it kind of gives you an update on what's literally going on around town with all the departments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, Jim?
I believe we have a meeting tomorrow morning, correct? Audit committee, sorry, the 3 nights got me. The audit committee is meeting 7:30 a.m. here tomorrow. for any adventurous citizens who want to come out, it's a public meeting, 7:30 a.m. and discuss things with the audit committee.
Jim found that one to be more entertaining than small cells.
Oh, yeah.
Doing great, Jim. Just stay right there. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of items, if you would allow me. Household Hazardous Waste Day is this Saturday, April 13th, and that's going to be taking place at the Francis Wyman School from 8:30 a.m. to noon. Again, this is the annual Household Hazardous Waste Day. Please visit the Board of Health website for the do's and don'ts for this event. I don't care to guess what they will accept and what they won't accept. I know some of the things they will and won't, but I don't want to make a mistake. So I would refer people to the website before you load your trunk up with, anything from your garage or your basement. But it's a great way to get rid of those things that have been loitering in your home. Secondly, the Council on Aging held their 4th annual senior prom last Thursday night. And by all accounts, it was a wonderful success. Congratulations to Cynthia and Paul Bonds, Burlington residents who were crowned prom queen and prom king that evening. I also want to thank our friends at Hilton Garden Inn for providing the space for the event, and our sponsors, Leahy Hospital, Reamer and Bronstein, Harvard Pilgrim, Sullivan's Funeral Home, and Shine In Math Academy. I'd also like to add a special thank you to my daughter Nicole and my niece Shannon for their efforts, collectively raised $1,000 for that event. So nice job, ladies. Thank you very much. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I know you all had an opportunity to mention Selectman Hartling. I'd like to take this opportunity now to extend my sincere thanks to Chris Hartling for his service on this board for the past 6 years. Chris brought a level of concern, care, and commitment to Burlington that was evident every Monday night that he was seated at this table. He recognized the importance of our robust economy and worked hard to keep Burlington's King of the Hill status strong for future years by helping to bring global giants like Millipore to Burlington and supporting the expansion at Northeastern University campus, which now has companies like the Rogers Corporation, Raytheon, Department of Homeland Security, and the United States Army Research Center, all occupying space up there. Seeking prosperity for all of our residents was Chris Hartling's objective, and he worked tirelessly to ensure that level of service that we have enjoyed for so long, that those level of services were maintained and enhanced whenever possible. I wish Chris and his wife Julie the very best, and again, thank him for his service to our community.
Very well said, very well said. Sir, anything?
No, I have nothing.
I've got a subcommittee yet.
No subcommittees here yet.
Just ask.
Yeah, that's right, Joe, you have to reassign everybody.
So we got the chairman's report. I'm just going to read on what Mike said about Mr. Hartling. He was just the greatest guy in the world. I loved working with him on this board. So once again, Chris, I hope you're not watching this, because if you are, you really need to change the channel. The other thing is, I'd like to thank Amy for a great job she did with her staff. You guys, everything you do up here for the election that happens on. BCAT, we saw them down there. They did their thing afterwards. So just want to thank everybody involved. And this board, I'd like to thank for taking the confidence in me to be the chair for the next term. Hopefully, I do a good job. I know it's not going to be a Chris Hartling show. It will be a Joe Morandi show, which could be very interesting. So stay tuned. Other than that, let's move on to Town Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Bob and Mike covered a couple of the items. I had the annual report here as well. The annual report was always something the town did a phenomenal job on, and it's gotten even better since Betty took it over. So I just wanted to also highlight the work that she does. A ton of work goes into this. And again, it just gets better every year. So I highly recommend the residents pick up a copy of this or download it online. There's a ton of information in there. The second thing, and Bob had mentioned it earlier, but I'd like to personally thank everybody that participated in the election, the winners and losers. As you guys know, it really takes some guts to stick your name on a ballot and put yourself out there like that. So this is what makes our system great, and I appreciate the winners and the losers for engaging themselves in the election and giving the voters a choice. So hopefully we can continue to have great people getting involved. And the last thing I have is we've started flushing hydrants this week. There's a map on the website, so if any of the residents notice that they may have some discoloration in your water, I'm told to just run your faucet for a minute, and that should go away and correct itself naturally. It looks as though they're currently working in the extreme corners of the town. I would describe it as south of 128. See if I get my directions here correct. East side of town from Cambridge Street going towards Woburn, Wilmington, Mill Pond area. And it looks like the far west part of town, which would be opposite side of Middlesex Turnpike, going towards 3rd Ave, towards Route 3. So those are the areas, once they get done flushing in those areas, they're gonna head to other parts of town, so. And I think that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yes.
Question for Mr. Sagarino. With the flushing of the water and being on a water ban, does the flushing have to occur on a certain timeline? And that's why we're doing it? I mean, I'm just curious.
It's an annual maintenance thing,
Yeah.
and one of the things they have to do when they're flushing is keep track of how much water goes through there as part of the DEP regulations. So
Okay.
I know it sounds counterintuitive that we're flushing water, but it is necessary to move any of the sediment through the system, and it's a regular part of our annual maintenance.
Sure. That's what I figured. I just, for folks at home who might be
No,
watching going,
I agree.
what are we doing flushing water during a water ban?
Good point.
Now we're all on the same page. Awesome, thank you.
If I may, I think it's also a way of checking the status of the fire hydrants, which are crucial. You need to make sure that they're functioning. If they come offline, they have to know about that. So I think that's also one of the reasons why they do it.
Okay, old business, new business? Old business, any old business? Any new business? I see Bob still sitting down there. Bob, you'd like to come up and, anything, you got anything for us? Nothing?
Just like hanging out with us?
Just like hanging out, you don't want to go home?
Motion to adjourn,
Yep.
Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
Make a motion to adjourn by Mike, second by Jimmy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.